Hello, Strange Owl fans. I am JM. We are here today with Tim Brown, also of Strange Owl. We're giving you a little bit of a behind the scenes interview with the members of Strange Owl and the members of Space 1889 after to kind of talk about their experience with Space 1889, their roles at Strange Owl, and what we can expect from the Kickstarter. So, Tim, thanks for taking time to do this.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
So, how would people know you if they don't immediately recognize you here?
Well, that's a loaded question, but I've been in the industry for a long time in role playing games. I started with Game Designers Workshop, the very company that created Space
Hmm.
1889 in the first place. Started with them way back in the late 70s, where I was pestering them to playtest their games up in their office in Normal, Illinois. And when they couldn't get rid of me, I ended up working my way into doing various work for them, and then got into the creating role playing products with the company, including stuff for Traveler, 2300
Hmm.
AD, Twilight 2000, all of those games. So I did all of that stuff leading up to the late 80s when it was the first time I heard about Space 1889.
So you were sort of a designer and a play tester, and that's how you kind of got involved in GDW. So when did you hear
Absolutely.
about Space 1889? Do you like what is your first experience with it?
The concept for that was created by Frank Chadwick. Frank was the president of Game Designers Workshop back in the day, and we had all these other role playing games in the works in the
Hmm.
mid '80s. Then about '87 or perhaps '88, I can't remember now. He Frank came to the various other designers around the office and said he had this idea for Space 1889, and it just sounded very compelling. You know, something that was very H.G. Wells and Jules
Hmm.
Verne, and it was very different and exciting. Yeah, so that was his invention right around then, as I recall.
So then, how did you get involved? How did you get involved in Space 1889? What was kind of your role within that product line?
Right. The At first, Frank was really kind of independently creating the entire game universe for Space 1889 and the rules that were going to go with that. But he was having consultations and various group meetings with the other designers around the office, and like the others who were there, like Lauren Wiseman and Lester Smith and others, we got involved and started talking about the game with him. And it started to develop and grow more and more until a lot of us had a lot of particular input on different parts of the universe. But to be fair, this basically was Frank's baby, and he was inventing it, and it was his vision, and that's what's made it great to this point.
Okay, so you and the other designers sort of midwifed it, but it's really Frank's baby.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so what other projects did you work on? Either did you work on any projects within Space 1889?
Yeah, I know I contributed to the basic rules book itself,
Okay.
and then also Tales of the Ether was a set of adventures at the time. I know I worked on that. I think I was involved in the original, the design of the original adventure that came with the game as well. But
Okay.
primarily, the biggest side project that I was involved with at the time was Sky Galleons of Mars.
I was just going to bring that up because for long-term and long-time fans of Space 1889, Space 1889 and Sky Galleons of Mars kind of go hand in hand. So if people aren't familiar with that, give us an overview of that and then tell us what you loved about it.
Of course, the whole idea of Sky Galleons of Mars was to create a very large tabletop board game to depict all the fighting of the various liftwood boats and whatnot that
Hmm.
were over the surface of Mars. That alone makes it very cool. It was also a very ambitious project, as it was going to be the first, and it became the first large board game that GDW ever made that actually had its own plastic pieces and things like that.
Oh,
So there was
okay,
a
yeah.
lot involved with creating, just the technology and infrastructure. Remember, this is the late 1980s. It was a
Right.
much different ball game then.
There were no 3D
But
printers or just people you
yeah,
could go and hire to design the molds and go. You had to do
yeah,
this yourself.
yeah, none of that. And yeah, that was quite an undertaking to be sure. But the game itself was coming along. Frank made a draft of the Sky Galleons game. We play tested that a few times, and then he turned over much of the development to me, and I got to take my pass at it as well. And I got to contribute quite a bit to that game and really sharpen it up. And it turned out to be a really fun game to play. And a lot of people got their introduction to Space 1889 through Sky Galleons of Mars. In fact, Daryl Hayhurst, who has made he's the designer on the new version that we're about to publish, that's Space 1889 After. Daryl was he was totally a big fan of Sky Galleons of Mars, and that's how he got involved way back in the day.
He talked about it when I got to interview him. If you guys want to go check it out, we've got that other interview on the channel as well. So you were involved in the beginning. We're now at Space 1899 After.
Right.
What made you want to acquire Space 1889 for Strange Owl Games?
Well, it's primarily the fact that through Ulysses Spiele, which is a great German role-playing game publisher in their own right, and they've had a lot of great success bringing together what I would call nostalgic role-playing games and revitalizing those for a new audience. They've had great success with Torg.
Yeah, we've got the Torg boxes kind of behind me.
Yes, Torg Eternity now, and Fading Suns and others that they've had a lot of success there. We were keeping an eye out for other properties that might be that might fit that mold. And Space 1889 was definitely one of those. We negotiated the acquisition of that property, and so now Strange Owl Games licenses that from Ulysses Spiele, its owner, and Space 1889 After will be a Strange Owl Games product that's going to kickstart here in just a short time.
That's awesome. So what other plans do we have for Space 1889 After?
The original setting for Space 1889 has been a bit updated. It's moved forward in time a little bit, so the situation has sort of changed. Space 1889 After takes place in a period where all of the great powers on Earth and all of the various civilizations around the solar system, they're all vying for power, and it's sort of leading towards what's going to be an eventual great conflict of some sort. And this is a very unsettled time that needs to be explored. So we want to have not only the initial release, we want to have adventures and other follow-on products. So a whole line of Kickstarters moving forward as we flesh out the entire Space 1889 After universe. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, Tim, thanks for joining us on this interview time, just to sit back and chat about Space 1889, Space 1889 After, and your involvement with Strange Owl Games. Check out all the other interviews that we have going on. If you want to learn more about Space 1889, there is a interview with Daryl Hayhurst, and then Daryl has produced a number of short videos that will explain key changes and key aspects of the rule. Look for the Kickstarter here in November, and we'll be back with more interviews with Strange Owls and luminaries of Space 1889 here in the near future.